Hello friends, and welcome to our second class for Standard 8. And in today's class, we'll be continuing with the lesson, The Boy Who Drew Cats. In the last class, you have studied the first 3 paragraphs of the story, The Boy Who Drew Cats. And now let us continue, shall we? Just for a recollection of the story, I'll just repeat what we have learned. I will just repeat what we have learned in the last class. We have seen the story of a Japanese family. There were many children in the family, and their father was a farmer. And the boys, they always helped their father, and the girls, they helped their mother from a very tender age onwards. And we have seen how the youngest child in the family was not very healthy. He was physically not very strong. Everybody said that he can never become a farmer, because for becoming a farmer you have to be very strong. This boy was weak physically, but he was very intelligent and smart. In fact, he was cleverer than all the other children in the family. Everyone suggested that he can never become a farmer, but he can become a priest. A priest is someone who is taking care of the spiritual matters. For that, you don't have to be very physically strong. So the family thought of making him a priest. Father took the child to a priest, an old priest, and told him that he wants his son to become a priest. He asked his permission if he can take him as their acolyte. What do we mean by acolyte? Acolyte means an assistant or a helper to a priest. The priest asked many difficult questions, but the boy answered all the questions correctly. And so the priest understood that this boy is very intelligent and clever, and he agreed to take the boy as his acolyte. Now let's continue, shall we? The boy learned quickly what the old priest taught him and was very obedient in most things, but he had one fault. He liked to draw cats during study hours, and to draw cats even where cats ought not to have been drawn at all. The priest was very happy with the boy in the beginning, but later on he finds that the boy has got one problem. What is the problem of the boy? The boy always wants to draw the pictures of cats. Whenever he gets some time, or wherever he finds a space for drawing, he starts drawing the pictures of cats everywhere. Even in his study times, even in his notebook, textbook, everywhere, on the walls, on the pillars, everywhere, the boy is drawing the pictures of cats. This really infuriated the priest. He becomes very angry because an acolyte or a future priest has to concentrate on the books and not on drawing pictures. What was the fault of the boy? He loves to draw the pictures of cats. He loves to draw the pictures of cats. In fact, it's some kind of a weakness for the boy that he always wants to draw the pictures of cats. He can't help it. Even when he is sitting somewhere, his hands started drawing the pictures of cats. Whenever he found himself alone, he drew cats. He drew them on the margins of the priest's books, and on all the screens of the temple, and on the walls, and on the pillars. Several times the priest told him this was not right. This was not right. But he did not stop drawing cats. He drew them because he could not really help it. He had what is called the genius of an artist, and just for that reason, he was not quite fit to be an acolyte. A good acolyte should study books. I told you, an acolyte is someone, an assistant, helper to a priest who is studying the religious things, the religious rites under the guidance of a priest. And he is supposed to be busy with religious texts. But this boy is more interested in some other business. That really made the priest very angry. He said, "You have all the qualities of an artist, but I don't know if you will become a priest, because a priest has to concentrate on books. You have to study books, not drawing the pictures." One day, after he had drawn some very clever pictures of cats upon a paper screen, the older priest said to him severely, "My boy, you must go away from this temple at once. You will never make a good priest. But perhaps you will become a great artist. Now let me give you last piece of advice, and be sure you never forget it. Avoid large places at night. Keep the small." Here we can see that the priest one day he said it openly, severely to the boy, that we cannot continue like this. I cannot let you study like this. I cannot allow you to be here because you are not concentrating on your studies. You are busy with drawing the pictures of cats everywhere, even in those places where you should not draw any pictures. So, I want to tell you something very seriously. I am going to send you away from here. You can try to become an artist. And before you go, I will give you one last advice. Be very careful and follow this advice. And what was the advice of the priest? Avoid large places at night, keep to small. Avoid large places at night, keep to small. The boy did not understand the meaning of these words, but let's see how these words of the priest will save his life. The boy did not know what the priest meant by saying, "Avoid large places, keep to small." He thought and thought while he was tying up his little bundle of clothes to go away, but he could not understand those words, and he was afraid to speak to the priest anymore except to say goodbye. Really, he wants to have a doubt clearing section with the priest. What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of avoid large places and keep to small? But he did not have the courage to ask anything more because the man is very angry. He did not have the courage to ask any more doubts to him. He just waved his hands and said goodbye to the priest. He left the temple very sorrowfully and began to wonder what he should do. If he went straight home, he felt sure his father would punish him for having been disobedient to the priest. So he was afraid to go home. All at once he remembered that at the next village, 12 miles away, there was a big temple. He had heard there were several priests at that temple, and he made up his mind to go to them and ask them to take him for the acolyte. There is a problem for the boy. The boy was fired, or we can say the boy was sent away from the temple by the priest, and he doesn't know what to do next because he has got two plans. One, plan A, is to go to his home. That will not work because if he goes to his house, his father will beat him up for having been disobedient to the priest. And for plan B is to go to another temple. So he was thinking about where can I go. Then he remembered that there is another temple which is a little far from this place, but still he can manage to reach there by the evening. If he starts in the morning, he can reach there by the evening, some 14 miles away from this temple. Anyway, he has made up his mind to go to that temple so that he can continue his pursuit to become a priest. He can become an acolyte to some priests there. He heard that this is a very big temple and there are many priests. At least one of them will select him to become his acolyte. Now that the big temple was closed up, but the boy did not know this fact. The reason it had been closed up was that a goblin had frightened the priests away and had taken possession of that place. Some brave warriors had afterward gone to the temple at night to kill the goblin, but they had never been seen alive again. Nobody had ever told these things to the boy, so he walked all the way to the village, hoping to be kindly treated by the priest. And the boy was not reading any newspapers or watching TV, and also nobody told the boy what is happening to that temple. And recently something wrong has happened to this. This temple was actually closed because of the attack of a goblin. What's a goblin? Goblin is a fictitious character, some monster. A monster has conquered this place. A monster has conquered this temple and settled inside this temple. And so it frightened all the priests away, and nobody was dare enough to go there and to do the rites. Everyone was very afraid, so the temple was locked down. Yeah, just like us. Everything is locked down. The boy did not know this. He was not aware of the fact that there is a goblin there inside and it is dangerous to go to the temple. Anyway, the boy started his journey in the morning and reached there in this new temple by late evening. Let's see what will happen. When he got to the village, it was already dark and all the people were in bed, but he saw the big temple on the hill at the other end of the principal street, and he saw there was light in the temple. People who tell the story say the goblin used to make this light in order to tempt lonely travelers to ask for shelter. The boy went at once to the temple and knocked. There was no sound inside. He knocked, but nobody was there to open the door. Then still nobody came. At last he pushed gently at the door and was quite glad to find that it had not been fastened. So he went in and saw a lamp burning, but no priest. So the boy is now in front of the door of the temple, and he very gently knocked at the door. Once, no answer. Again, no answer. Again, he knocked again and again on the door, but nobody opened the door. Then he just pushed the door a little bit and found that it is opened. So it was not fastened, not locked. He entered into this temple where the goblin is living. And for your information, I will tell you a secret. This light that the boy saw when he was coming to the temple was actually a trick of the goblin. The goblin used some magic to attract people to the temple so that when they come inside the temple, he can kill them and drink their blood and eat them. Only some people know that this is the trick of the monster. This is the trick of the goblin. He thought some priest would be sure to come very soon, and he sat down and waited. Then he noticed that everything in the temple was grey with dust and thickly spun over with cobwebs. So he thought to himself that the priest would certainly like to have an acolyte to keep the place clean. He wondered why they had allowed everything to get so dusty. What most pleased him, however, were some very big, bright white screens. Good to paint cats upon. Though he was tired, he looked at once for a writing box and found one and ground some ink and began to paint cats. So when the boy is inside the temple, he just looked around and saw that the whole place is covered with dust. There are many spiders and cobwebs everywhere. Spiders and cobwebs. He didn't understand why it is like that. Maybe the acolytes here are not very good. They are not doing or cleaning the temple, maybe. But you know the reason. Nobody was coming to this temple for many days. That's why the place is very dirty and fully covered with cobwebs. The boy was happy when he saw the place is covered with dust and cobwebs, because then the priest really needs the help and support of an acolyte to at least to clean this place, right? So he is sure that I will get the chance to work as an acolyte here. But what really attracted him, what caught his attention, was the beautiful white walls everywhere where he can draw the pictures of cats. Wow, he wanted to draw the pictures of cats everywhere. Very beautiful walls, white in color. Where can I get a pen and some ink and start my work of drawing the pictures of cats? Yeah, I got the pen. Here I got the ink. Now let's start the work. He painted a great many cats upon the screens and then began to feel sleepy. Very, very sleepy. He was just on the point of lying down to sleep beside one of the screens when he suddenly remembered the words, "Avoid large places, keep to small." The temple was very large. He was all alone, and as thought of these words, though he could not quite understand them, he began to feel for the first time a little afraid, and he resolved to look for a small place in which to sleep. He found a little cabinet with a sliding door and went into it and shut himself up. Then he lay down and fell fast asleep. The boy was very busy drawing the pictures of cats for some time. Then he felt very sleepy. He wants to sleep. He is very tired because he had been walking 14 miles to reach this temple. So he was very tired and he wants to sleep. He needs some rest. And he was about to lay down and sleep. Suddenly, The words of the priest came to his mind. What was it? Avoid large places. Avoid large places. Keep to small. Suddenly he remembered these words of the old priest. Remember that he told him to remember these words. Avoid large places. Keep to small. So this is a very big temple. Nobody was there. The boy was all alone. He became a little frightened. He was little frightened. So anyway, he decided to obey the priest. So he found a small cabinet somewhere there with a sliding door. He just opened it and go inside and slept there. Shut the door and slept there. Let's see how these words of the priest is going to save the boy. So remember, obey the words of your teachers and parents. Very late in the night, he was awakened by most terrible noise of fighting and screaming. It was so dreadful that he was afraid even to look through the chink of the little cabinet. He lay very still, holding his breath. He just slept there. He did not have the courage to open his eyes and look what is happening there. He just lay there, little frightened. The boy slept there. When the boy was lying inside the cabinet, he heard many frightening sounds, like the sound of cats, rats, meow, things like that. And he was so frightened, and many things are happening, and the light turned off suddenly, and there was a shaking. The temple was shaking. Many things are happening. He was so horrified, terrified, and he slept there. He was frightened, and maybe he could not sleep for a while. And after some time, everything became very, very calm and quiet. And the boy slept peacefully after this. The light that had been in the temple went out, but the awful sounds continued and became more awful, and all the temple shook. After a long time, silence came, but the boy was still afraid to move. He did not move until the light of the morning sun shone into the cabinet through the chinks of the little door. The boy, he slept there. He did not have the courage to go out, open the door and see what is this, from where the sound is coming from. He just slept there, and he wakes up only when he wakes up in the next morning. Very cautiously, very carefully, he opened it and came outside and watched. It was a frightening sight. Then he got out of his hiding place very cautiously and looked about. The first thing he saw was that all the floor of the temple was covered with blood. The whole place, the carpet, the floor, everywhere full of blood. And then he saw lying dead in the middle of it an enormous monstrous rat, a goblin rat, bigger than a cow. At first he saw some blood there on the floor, full of blood. The floor was completely filled with blood, and in the middle of that there is the goblin rat. the goblin, a monstrous, enormous, monstrous goblin, and it was bigger than the size of a cow. But who or what could have killed it? But who or what could have killed it? There was no man or other creature to be seen. So, who killed this monster? Is this the monster that killed the many warriors who came there? Is this the monster that frightened all the priests in the temple? And who killed this monster? Nobody is here. No creatures are seen here. Who killed this monster? Suddenly the boy observed that the mouths of all the cats he had drawn the night before were red and wet with blood. Then the boy noticed something special. In the previous day, he had drawn some pictures of cats everywhere on the walls. Now in those pictures of cats, he saw that the lips of the cats are very red in color. The lips are red in color, wet with blood. Now he understood who killed this goblin. The boy understood two things. One, who killed this monster? It is the cats that he had drawn the previous day. They came alive at night because of some magic and killed this monstrous rat or the goblin. Second, now he understood the meaning of what the old priest has told him. The advice of the priest: avoid large places, keep it small. It is because he obeyed the words of this priest that his life is saved. So, obey your teachers and your parents. Okay? Afterward, that boy became a very famous artist. Some of the cats which he drew are still shown to travelers in Japan. After this incident, people understand that this boy is so talented, and they all appreciated the boy for his courage and valor in fighting and killing this monster, and he became a very famous painter. His paintings are still there in Japan. So if you are planning a trip to Japan after this lockdown period, you just go and watch these pictures of the boy. It is still preserved there in Japan. When you see those wonderful pictures of cats drawn by the boy, remember me also. I think you have enjoyed this story, haven't you? Are there any difficult words from these paragraphs which I have taken today? Shall we move on to the question answers? Question number 4. What was the advice of the priest to the boy? You know the advice given by the priest to the boy. Avoid large places and keep it small. Why didn't the boy go home after he left the temple? He was sure that his father would punish him for being disobedient to the priest. Number 6. When the boy entered the temple, he did not see anyone. What could be the reason? Because a goblin rat has frightened away all the priests and the temple was closed. 7. Why did he choose a small place to sleep? He remembered the last words of the old priest, his advice. Avoid large places, keep it small. So he did not sleep in the large area. He went to the cabinet and opened it and slept inside the cabinet, a small place. Where did the boy find a safe place to sleep on? Inside the cabinet. What was the dreadful voice that the boy heard? It was the sound of the fighting between the goblin and the cats, drawn by the boy. How do you think the goblin rat was killed? The goblin rat was killed in a fight between the goblin and the cats drawn by the boy. Was the advice of the priest helpful to the boy? Why? Yes. When this terrible fight was going on between the goblin and the cats, the boy was safe inside a small place. That's all for today. I hope you all understood the story. So, read the textbook many times. Write answers to all the questions. There are 11 questions in your textbook. So, do all the textual activities. Now you know the answers and write it down in your notebook. I'll see you again in the next class. Till then, bye-bye. എൻ്റെ അമ്മ